Hello there guys, what is going on? Son of Chelsea back here again for another edition of Let's Talk Chelsea, going through some of the biggest news stories surrounding the club in recent days. But before we get into any of that, I want to ask you guys, if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Also hit that like button if you're enjoying the content because it helps out the channel as well. Let's firstly start off with another Kai Havertz update from Matt Law, and it's the noise around Kai Havertz just seems to be now that he will be a Chelsea player very soon, maybe in the next couple of weeks, because since we qualified for the Champions League, negotiations seem to be starting with Chelsea and Bayer Leverkusen. Now Chelsea very quick to get this deal done. They want to get it done as soon as possible. Personal terms have been agreed already, so that's all in the bag for Chelsea. It's just about negotiating and confirming that fee and seeing how high that fee will be. I mean, I've always debated, will this be Chelsea's record signing? In recent weeks, it looks like it may just fall under Kepa's big fee for Chelsea, but it may still be the highest fee. But I think it will be one of the biggest signings in Chelsea history for sure, for the attention it's going to get and the statement it makes. But this comes from Matt Law, the best source surrounding Chelsea transfer news, saying that Chelsea are in talks with Bayer Leverkusen over a fee for midfielder Kai Havertz. Confidence is building that Havertz will move to Stamford Bridge after the player expressed his desire to join German teammates Timo Werner and Antonio Rudiger at Chelsea. Personal terms will not be a problem for Chelsea, with talks now aimed at the two clubs agreeing a fee for the 21-year-old Havertz, who will not be forced to play in next Thursday's Europa League tie against Rangers if it could jeopardise a deal. While the signing of Havertz was not dependent on Chelsea qualifying for the Champions League, it is expected to advance negotiations this week, as both clubs are eager for the transfer not to drag on too long. So it just feels like a matter of days. I mean, I wouldn't be too stunned if by this time next week we're getting close to Fabrizio Romano tweeting "here we go" in regards to Havertz and Chelsea, or Matt Law reporting something a bit like Timo Werner agreeing to become a Chelsea player. It's great, it really is, and the swift nature of Chelsea's transfer business has been one of the most impressive things in recent months. I mean, basically the official transfer window has just opened, but for Chelsea to get sort of half of their summer recruitment, it looks like done before sort of the big transfer window has gone on, and sort of we can now focus, once Havertz is done, on the rest of recruitment, mostly defensively. You know, left back, centre back, goalkeeper is where Chelsea need to look at next, and being able to have that time now to prioritise that, which Chelsea clearly are, a new goalkeeper, a new centre back, to be able to finish those signings and have all that time to do that, I think is brilliant. It's amazing, and it shows how serious Chelsea are to invest. And it's a bit of a shock to me because I didn't think Chelsea were going to sign in central midfield this summer, but I think it's a bit like the Eden Hazard signing in 2012. You know, when you've got a talent of this quality that could become one of the best players in the world and could become Chelsea's best player in a few years, you can't pass up on it, especially when the likes of Real Madrid and Bayern Munich are unable to sign this player currently. How serious Chelsea are looking to be in moving forward and progressing in the Premier League and the Champions League. So it's a matter of time now, and hopefully I'll be sat here maybe sooner rather than later reporting and talking about Chelsea signing Kai Havertz. Please let me know your opinions on this. How quickly do you think this deal will be confirmed? Please let me know in the comments below. Next story is about the future of Willian and why he could be staying at Stamford Bridge next season, which would be a massive shock considering everything we've heard. I mean, most of us have expected, because of those contract talks, because Willian wants in 3 years, Chelsea only willing to give him 2 years, that he'd be off this summer somewhere, potentially staying in the Premier League, going to a team like Arsenal. This would be the end for Willian at Stamford Bridge. But Sky Sports yesterday are reporting that Chelsea had made a breakthrough on contract negotiations with the winger. And there's been some conflicting reports, I have to be honest. You know, as you see here by ESPN, Lampard desperate to keep Willian at Chelsea. Jacob Steinberg reported in The Guardian last night, and it was with Fabrizio Romano as well. They were mostly talking about Kai Havertz, but in there they talked about Pedro departing for Roma and Willian. It's basically, they were reporting that nothing really as much has changed with Willian, and I haven't seen a lot from the likes of Simon Johnson, Liam Toomey, or Matt Law talking about Willian and anything major changing there. So you have to take this with a pinch of salt, especially with Sky Sports and their track record recently with Chelsea news, and not hearing Matt Law and people like that talk about it. I'm not entirely sure, but it's an interesting turn of events. I would be stunned if Willian is still a Chelsea player next season. I really would. I'm not, as anyone who's watched this channel for a long time, I'm much more of a fan and much more positive of Willian, and I think a lot of Chelsea fans online are. I can understand why Frank Lampard would want to keep Willian. Simply for the fact of what he adds to the dressing room, that experience. He's leaned on Willian a lot this season. He's been one of his starters. I mean, even though, of course, Mason Mount scored on Sunday, you know, Willian could have been a starter on Sunday for sure against Wolves. You know, he's relied on Willian so much. And this has been, the raw numbers tell you this has been a good season for Willian. You know, in several stats, he's outdone what he's done at Chelsea for a long period of time. And especially since the restart, he's been one of Chelsea's best creators, you know, level with Bruno Fernandes for created chances. And that's massive, you know, for Chelsea and what we've been trying to do in getting in the Champions League. So you cannot underrate that from Willian. I've always felt I think it's the same as Pedro of Chelsea looking to refresh certain areas of the pitch and, looking at Hakim Ziyech coming in, looking at Callum Hudson-ODOI, Christian Pulisic, a new look to Chelsea, a new face to Chelsea really going forward, especially in attacking areas. And you look at players like Said Benrahma, who could be coming in from Brentford. That'd be a really good option, I think, as a backup winger, a rotational winger, still a young player, could get better over time for a decent fee, to be honest. I just felt that Willian, it was a nice endpoint to me. I think it really was, especially if you win the FA Cup and he starts that game, potentially scores a goal in that game. But I think maybe a bit like the Olivier Giroud situation, a bit like the Willy Caballero situation, maybe COVID has had something to do with this, maybe the uncertainty, maybe the fact that Willian just feels he isn't going to get 3 years, maybe somewhere else. I would say not to go all out and think this is definitely going to be the case now that Willian's going to be a Chelsea player next season. I think it would be stunning to me, it really would, just based on where Willian is. I mean, I think that Willian, I'm sure, backs himself, and it's the reason why he probably wants a 3-year contract. He still backs himself that he can be a first-team player in the Premier League, especially at Chelsea. I think next season will be the toughest for him to retain his place because Ziyech, you look at the names coming in, we know Havertz potentially on his day could play out wide as well. I just think it's unrealistic for him to still be, and I just think for the way Chelsea are going, I think it was something that we needed to do a couple of years ago, really revamp that style, really revamp that area of the squad, and I think Frank Lampard has started to do that with Christian Pulisic, Mason Mount sometimes being fielded in a front three, Tammy Abraham, Timo Werner, really dropping the age level, which I think Chelsea needed to do for a long time. But let me know your opinions. I know it's going to be divided on Willian. I think, this is quite sort of a small point, but I'd love to see Christian Pulisic get that number 10 shirt. And of course, if Willian stays, that isn't going to happen. But what do you think about Willian? Do you think Chelsea could keep him this summer? Do you think these reports are true? What do you think about Frank Lampard being desperate to keep Willian in the dressing room? Do you think that's a positive thing or a negative thing? Please let me know in the comments below. And before I wrap up today's video, just want to talk about Timo Werner finally arriving at Chelsea. He was at the game on Sunday at Wolves watching his new team winning, and of course at Cobham for the first time. We got some pictures yesterday of him in training for the first time. Very exciting, along with seeing Hakim Ziyech in training. I think it's just one of the weird things about this season, really, that of course, Chelsea have still got the FA Cup final to come. We've got the game against Bayern Munich that I think a lot of us, including myself, have sort of forgotten about. You don't really, because it's been so long since that first leg. It almost feels like a little bit of a pre-season friendly because it's gone on for so long. So we're going to have to wait till after that. I'm very intrigued to see how pre-season works out because of the congested nature of it. I really hope Chelsea just are able to maybe televise some of these pre-season games so we get to see Timo Werner, Hakim Ziyech, some of the new players, especially Werner, up top for Chelsea before we do start the Premier League season again, which is on September the 12th. That got confirmed last week. But it's exciting now. I think, there's been so much talk and so much has happened in recent weeks, Chelsea, Kai Havertz, all of that stuff, that we've forgotten about how good of a signing Timo Werner was. And I think what an amazing signing that could turn out to be for Chelsea. I think it's very exciting to see the front three that Chelsea will be putting out next season and what Frank Lampard has in Timo Werner. I think it's so exhilarating to think about, and Hakim Ziyech setting up Timo Werner for goals, Christian Pulisic and Timo Werner working together. I think it's really exciting. So good to see him finally in blue and seeing him training. Hopefully it won't be too long before we finally see him on the pitch for Chelsea. So that is it for today's edition of Let's Talk Chelsea. Thank you guys so much for taking the time to watch this video. If you did enjoy it, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Follow me on Twitter @SonOfChelsea. Have a great day and I'll see you again.